Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar and virtual event. My name is Jessica Holsey with the Addiction Policy Forum, and we are very excited today to launch Campaña de Prevención de Opioides, which is our prevention campaign and awareness campaign for Spanish-speaking communities to address substance misuse, opioid use, and real prevention materials for teens, adolescents, parents, teachers, and communities at large. I'm really excited to be able to share this with everyone. This is a public health media campaign to really make available some prevention resources to underserved communities that too often are overlooked in making evidence-based and science-backed materials available to all communities. We also know that there's been, unfortunately, some impact from COVID. We're seeing increases in overdose rates nationwide, with, unfortunately, the largest increase that we've ever seen in overdose fatalities. I apologize for the workmen outside who are doing a little bit of construction. So welcome to working from home world and some of the side effects that come with that. But I think now more than ever for us to go upstream and focus on prevention resources for all members of our community is incredibly important. The campaign really breaks down what we know and a lot of the research and science that we've gleaned from the National Institute on Drug Abuse and other researchers and practitioners in the prevention field. So in terms of the why is this a priority for us and why is the time now? So we know that a little over 18% of the US population is estimated to be Latino or Hispanic, but we also know from some new data from SAMHSA that we have 1.1 Hispanic or Latino youth who have used illicit drugs in the past year and used illicit or misused opioids in the past year. But we also know that prevention is critical because 92% of our Latinx community adolescents will not, who have a substance use disorder, will not receive specialty treatment. So access to care is limited for underserved communities in both our Latinx communities as well as our African-American patient populations, which I think really requires us to double down on going upstream for those prevention messages and resources for communities and families. Now, we're really excited about the components of the opioid prevention campaign. I'm not a Spanish speaker, so I'm going to rely on some of our staff here at APF to help me out with some of these pieces. But the toolkit that we're launching today, we're very grateful to the AmerisourceBergen Foundation, who's joining us at our event, for providing the funds to make this possible. But this is an open source resource, meaning that this is provided to all communities at no cost, that this translates the latest science, so it's evidence-based. And there are components for both adults and adolescents. So we have social media tiles. Every one of you who are joining us today can help spread the word and put these information pieces out into your own networks, to your own families, to your own organizations, to your own agencies, to make this content more readily available. A couple of the pieces to highlight. We're very proud of our videos and PSAs, as well as the other materials that are included in our toolkit for families. The toolkit is available for download for free, and there's links to every single program component that is part of the opioid prevention campaign. So there are videos and PSAs, there are publications that you can print, there are Twitter tiles that you can post out. There's multiple sort of elements of this campaign. I'd also like to thank the staff at Addiction Policy Forum who really made this possible. I'd like to thank Liliana Coronado, Haley Tenney, and Veronica Olivos for spending the time to put this together and to make sure that it was customized for our Latinx community partners. And along those same lines, our focus group team, and I'm so excited that they're joining us today, we believe that we should not cut corners in providing resources and materials for every single community. And when we customize things to make sure that we get it right, our focus grouping and our expert feedback that we received from our focus group members was just incredibly important. So I want to thank them and thank the team at APF for really making this possible. So a couple of the PSAs that are available for download. We have an explainer video that is available and really focuses on an adolescent audience to talk about all substance misuse and opioids, and making sure that we're raising awareness on risk factors and being aware of how do we keep ourselves safe from addiction. We also have 7 things teachers can do to prevent addiction, which is another explainer video in Spanish. Also could be used for other individuals who work with youth, whether that's a after-school youth program or a community-based service program, to make sure that we know that all of us have a role to play in preventing addiction and being aware of some of the vulnerabilities and the risks that exist in our Latinx communities are really important. We also have the Opioid Facts piece. This is, again, open source Twitter tiles and Facebook posts and other content that you can use and share and make sure that we raise awareness. We talk about the brain science of addiction, the vulnerability for younger adolescents in terms of risk factors in developing an addiction, and put this out into bite-sized pieces that tell the story of what the science says around the importance of prevention. There's also content for parents. There's the 12 things parents can do to prevent addiction, which I love. There's both the video explainer as well as the video, the publication that goes with it. And both of those together, again, something you can share with your organization and your networks. The teachers, again, we have sample social media posts along with the tiles that can go out for the community here. Now, I mentioned some of this, all of the materials are translated and ready for download, again, in our toolkit, but making sure that we spread the word and make these available to folks that might not have access to both resources in Spanish, but also culturally appropriate resources that have been run by our community that we're serving. So today, I'm really excited. So that's a quick overview, and I know I sort of breeze through that, but please, we'll put the link in the chat, but please visit the campaign website, download our toolkit, let us know if you want to join the campaign and receive information every single week on what we're advancing and what we're promoting to our communities. We're really excited about getting this out there. Our speakers today are all not just speakers to talk about the importance of making resources available to this community, but they also have been involved in getting this right and making this project available to all of you and to our larger network. So Rafael Mercado with Team Havoc, Christina Rabinin-Deal, who's at Westat, Beverly Watts-Davis with the West Care Foundation, and Kate Lapel Herzog with the Marisource Bergen Foundation are really been critical components in sort of us getting this right, being on a focus group and taking the time to walk through dozens of individual fact sheet posts and documents and videos takes time and effort and commitment. And we're incredibly grateful to all of you for joining with us in this effort to really make better prevention resources available for our Spanish-speaking communities and families that are in need. So we're really, really grateful that you could join us today. So at that, I am going to first pass this off, just for, very excited I get to introduce you all to Rafael and have him share a little bit about his role in this and his work that he does with Team Havoc, and really address the importance of making resources available to all members of our community.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate everything Addiction Policy Forum is doing for us here in the community, city of Milwaukee, but not just us, but throughout the whole United States. To our panel, you guys are awesome. You guys rock. Michelle, for keep motivating me to not give up, to keep this up. The reason why I started Team Havoc which is an acronym for Together Everyone Achieves More, Helping Another Volunteer Cause, was back in 2012. I came to a standstill in my life. I was released from federal prison, having done time for dealing drugs. And while in there, I had nothing but time to think about what I had become. I went from a gifted and talented student to taking a fast lane, dealing drugs. Never got into them, but I created a lot of havoc. I created a lot of hurt, a lot of pain in my family, the community, and listening to people's stories while I was in federal prison about their regrets and stuff like that. It was like an eye opener, something we don't get here in the streets when it comes to therapy. And I looked at my dealing ways as an addiction to a hustle, to a lifestyle. And I actually gained good, stable ground. I started hanging around with people that were positive, pastors, and all of that. And mind you, I'm not religious. As a youth, from the age of 8 to 12, I was molested by our Catholic priest. So I started on set in my 40s, having nightmares, flashbacks, went to therapy, was offered opioids. I did not like the feeling. It was like a craving for something that I did not like, that I did not enjoy. So I refused to take them and instead started learning about them. So anyways, while I did this, inside, when I came home, I was talking about my cousins being on Boy. And to me, Boy, when you're saying, it had nothing to do with heroin or opioids, it had something to do with being, into the same sex. And I was just like, whoa, what do you mean that, these guys are hardcore, they've been shot, stabbed and everything. And then as fast as I learned that about them, I started gaining an understanding as to what they meant by boy. My cousins were big in construction field, obtained injuries. And the reason why I say cousins, because the story I'm telling you is how I got started is about 4 of them. So within like about 2-3 months, I lost 4 first cousins. These were siblings, my mom's siblings' kids, and they all got addicted through opioids. My cousin Thomas, he overdosed mixing Xanax that was laced with fentanyl. My cousin Mikey got hooked on the Percocets, and my cousin Ruski got hooked on the Percocets. And when their prescriptions ran out from their injuries, they went to what's easily available here in Milwaukee, heroin. $5 a hit. Milwaukee is known for your first hit is free. They give it to you free to keep you hooked. That's the state of mentality that's here in Milwaukee. We're on the I-90, 94 corridor. I work with a lot of different groups. So just knowing what that corridor means, they call it, there's a saying here that says I-90 will make you a millionaire. That's for the human trafficking. They get these girls hooked on these pills and then they sell them abroad, and I-90 takes you all the way to the West Coast where they transfer you overseas. Sounds scary, but it's a reality that we live in. We deal with these girls, we deal with these boys, we deal with these addictions on a daily basis. So when my cousin TJ died, Thomas, I had enough. It was the 4th one. I was just like, why ain't nobody talking about this? Why does not my parents care? Why does not his parents care? Why are our cousins like, oh, it is what it is. He was an addict. That's it. That's all there is. He's done with them. It shouldn't be a mentality like that we live in. We should first say, why is he using? What led him to this? He was a good, strong kid. He could have been anything he wanted. Why are we forgetting about him? And it's because of the shame. With us Hispanics, we don't talk about that. We're embarrassed. That cycle of living, that cycle of mentality needs to stop. And that's what we intend to do here at Team Havoc. That's why we say together, everyone achieves more, helping another volunteer cause. We don't pick and choose our causes. We listen to them on the streets, and then we work. We look to see what is happening. We listen to understand, and we listen to both sides. Both sides of the spectrum are correct. Those that are naysayers that say, why do you do this? Why do you care about them? They're going to keep using. Well, they're going to keep using till one day they say, I've had enough. And when that day comes, we're going to be here at the ready saying, we're here for you. We still love you. You had a hiccup. It's okay. we can get you help. We're known for warm handovers. So it was in February. If anybody knows the Midwest in Milwaukee, it gets cold out here. And I met a pastor named Marty Calderon. He runs a sober living facility here in Milwaukee. Actually, a couple of them called God's Touch Milwaukee. Awesome man. And I talked to him that day, and he was just like, you know, I've heard so much about you here on the streets. You're a legend. I said, I'm not a legend. Those days are, you know, gone. That's not me. I'm here because my cousin died, and I want to know who did it. All I was thinking was vengeance. But then I don't know what it was about him, because he prayed for me that night, because that's what I wanted. I wanted vengeance of the guys, the dealers that were going to take out. They were taking out my family, like, with pills. And I didn't understand, you know, why nobody could be as hurt as I was, because that was our blood. But he prayed upon me, and then it was weird because I started having dreams in the middle of February, mind you, with blizzard, snow. And I kept on having a dream of a march. And Marty would call me in the morning, hey, how you doing? You know, I'm just calling to check up. And, man, Marty, I had this weird dream about a march. He's like, a march? Kind of march. I said, but people were following me and stuff like that. And he was like, and what was the basis of the march? And I was just like, it was about all this shit going on. Excuse my French. You know, heroin, everything. Just killing, taking everybody. Nobody cares. He goes, well, follow your dream. And then I met a county supervisor here named Peggy West. Awesome woman. And she was like, what's up, Pancho? And at this time, I had already changed my lifestyle. I'm volunteering at St. Vincent de Paul, which is where I met Peggy West as a volunteer there at the meal program. I met a lot of addicts and stuff, listen to the stories. I'd sit there and talk to them. I would take my daughter, my granddaughter, we'd help their kids, you know, with their homework and stuff like that. Listening to the stories, and I was still having these dreams. And then Marty was like, you should have a march. I said, Marty, it's the middle of winter, you know, we've got snow. And he goes, well, God's guiding you. God's commanding you to do this. And even though you're not religious, trust that he is. So here we are at the end of February, snow up to our knees, and we decided to host the march. We started on the south side of Milwaukee on 24th and Forest Home, which there was a CVS, because I wanted to bring attention to the pharmaceutical companies. I wanted them to know, we're holding you accountable. We're tired of this. We're holding you accountable. And at this time, mind you, nobody was talking about this. It was nobody. I mean, people didn't want to talk to our group because the offshoot of Team Havoc was Milwaukee Heroin Divers. Me, Marty Calderon, and Peggy West started Milwaukee Heroin Divers. Nobody wanted to deal with us because you didn't talk about that stuff back then. It was a no-no. And so we held this march at CVS. We posted it. And we wanted to march to the police station on 2nd and Lincoln, which was 2 miles away in the frigid cold, but to bring awareness to, hey, we need help out here. And we were thinking maybe about 20, 30 people, because that's all like people that signed up to go. But when we got there was a few thousand people. By the time we started marching for 24th and we finally got to 2nd and Lincoln, the line was still leaving CVS 2 miles away. That's how much support we had. And from there, we didn't stop. We just started engaging the community, being out there in the community. We did things differently. If you look at our Facebook page, Milwaukee MKE Heroin Diaries, you see on our page that we post things that your typical group is not going to post. And the reason why we did this is we took the children into consideration. What are we doing this for? We had to ask ourselves, what are we doing this for? Are we doing this to help the addict? Or are we doing this to prevent kids from using and becoming the next addict? When we thought about that with a clear mindset, we understood what God was saying. And mind you, I'm not religious. He was telling us to do this for the kids. We weren't, nor are we to this day, prepared to help the addict. I'm not a licensed therapist. I can do a warm handover. I can listen to your stories, but I wouldn't know really what to say. And I'd hate to put my foot in my mouth by telling you something wrong. So we focused on the kids. We showed addicts on their being buried, my cousins being buried. We showed addicts out there butt naked, acting fools. We got a lot of lashback, real harsh. But When we talked to them, they understood why we were doing it, and they applauded us for doing that. Some addicts reached out and said, you know why I quit cold turkey? Was because I seen myself in that video. And I said, that's why we do this. We're here for you. We've gotten a lot of people into treatments. We work with God's Touch Milwaukee, UCC, Meta House, Rogers Memorial, Teen Challenge. And all we do is warm handovers. But what we do here for us to prevent these kids from using, we go out in the community. We don't got time because I'm part of the city and counties board here on the drug and opium, the cocaine, heroin, and opioids epidemic plague in Milwaukee. I'm under task force. We don't got time for the studies that these task force always say, okay, we're going to do another 18 months of studying. We don't got time for that. So what we do here at Team Havoc, we take all the wonderful literature that you guys give us at Addiction Policy Forum through Michelle, all the other groups that give us their literature, and we literally walk these streets Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturdays with backpacks. We're handing out literature galore. We're handing out fentanyl testing strips. We're handing out Narcan. And mind you, here in Wisconsin and Milwaukee, fentanyl testing strips are illegal. It's considered drug paraphernalia. So me as a convicted felon, I'm actually breaking the law handing out these fentanyl testing strips. But the law now, it's weird because now they're on our side. And they do the same thing too that we're doing because it's saving lives. Since July, we've had a 15-month-old boy die from a fentanyl overdose, a 13-month-old boy die from a fentanyl overdose, and a 13-month-old girl die from fentanyl overdoses. So if I can save a life by handing out these fentanyl testing strips, I'm not going to worry about going to jail. I've been to jail. Saving a life to me is more precious. That's why we do this. We do this for these kids to prevent them. We need to engage the community. We can't be shy. We can't coddle them no more. We can't coddle the addict no more. We have to be firm and say, we're here for you. We love you. But our focus right now has to be on these kids and the future generation. We already have maybe 100 million addicts out there that need help, that are crying. That's what we're here for. When they're ready, we're here to do a warm handover. But in the meantime, we're going to keep engaging these streets, these schools, through whatever means possible that we have. Literature, we do events. We just had an event for Thanksgiving where over 9,000 people passed through them doors. And we literally gave out every single piece of literature we had, which was like, wow. We've done events where we've given out maybe 200-300 pieces of literature, but when we gave out maybe close to 3,000 different types of literature, 4 cases of Narcan, over 650 gun locks, that's what Team Havoc is about. Embracing this call and doing this for the kids. We don't apply for grants, and I'm going to tell you why. I don't know how. I don't know how to write a grant. I'd be scared to get the wrong question. I'd be scared that they're going to say, well, you can't post that bag you showed on your Facebook page saying this is a bad batch, do not use it. I don't want to be limited by any of that because we don't got time to be limited. So we don't apply for grants. I do painting and drywall, and when I do side jobs, I use that money to get us Narcan, to get us fentanyl strips, to pay for literature if we need to, which we very seldom don't, to buy our t-shirts so kids can have. They're always asking for shirts. But there's thousands of groups like us here at Team Havoc that we don't apply for the grants because we don't know how. I finally reached out to Michelle, and Michelle and I have been working together now maybe 5+ years. And I reached out to her last week asking her, can you help me? Because now I see the importance of these grants, how they can help us grow. We are a 501c3, but we've never received anything. And we did do a GoFundMe one last year. Was it last year or the year before on Facebook? We raised $980. Then Facebook didn't give it to us. I forgot the reason why they didn't give it to us. So stuff like that deters the groups like us, but we just keep pushing because we know this is much needed and it's God guided. And I think that's why we have so much success. But I want you to know that everything you guys are doing, we so appreciate it. The work you guys do, doing this for the LatinX communities, and don't let it stop there. Let's go to the Hmong. They're really big in opioids, really big, especially here in Milwaukee. Nationwide, I know it's bigger. The Germans, the Polish. I know a lot of Yugoslavians and Czechoslovakians. One of my cousins that died, Elijah Rogelio and Rudy Rogelio. Their mom's maiden name was Milosevic. The Serbians, real big on the opioids. Let this just be the beginning of the great work we're going to do with the Addiction Policy Forum. Let's not let it stop. Let's continue to help one another and encourage one another when we're feeling beat up and defeated to give up. Let's uplift them. Let's support them and say we do this for them. There's a saying I'm going to end with, because I can ramble on and on if anybody knows me, but I read it in middle school. It says, how can the children of tomorrow love this world if we, the people of today, destroy its beauty before they even see it? Let's give these kids a chance to know the truth and the reality of what that one try, that one hit, that one taste will do to them. Let's be real in what we're doing. Let's no longer use the egg in a frying pan, but use real life situations. So then they will have a real life decision to make rather than an assumption based on looking at an egg in a frying pan. I want to thank you guys for letting me talk. Any questions, feel free to reach out. You can find us on Facebook at Team Havoc or MKE Heroin Diaries or myself, Pancho Mercado. Thank yous again. I really appreciate this. I love what you guys are doing. And together, we're going to make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Pancho. I'm so grateful to you for all the work that you do in your community to serve others. We love partnering with you. We're going to send you these materials that are all translated into Spanish, and anything else that we can do to support your work, we're in. And we appreciate you taking your time and helping us to get this right. I agree, this is just the beginning. It's important that we get prevention materials to every single community, and it gets customized, translated into the language that they need, and take time to make sure it's meaningful and usable for everyone, because we can prevent substance use disorders, we can prevent opioid use disorder, and investing in that is critical. Yes. So a quick sort of change up. I have some comments I've seen come in the chat. I really wish that I could do this whole thing for y'all in Spanish, but I don't speak much Spanish. It's on my to-do list. I promise to rectify that at some point in my to-do list item. I'll take some classes and be able to maybe do one of these webinars in the future. But for any of our Spanish speakers that have joined us today, I wanted to turn this over to Liliana Coronado to share a little bit about the campaign. All components of this that are open source and prevention resources have been translated into Spanish, and she can give you a little bit of feedback and overview of the campaign.
Thanks, Jess. Buenos días o buenas tardes, dependiendo en dónde están ahorita escuchándonos. Yo soy Liliana Coronado y estoy aquí para darles una poquita de información acerca de esta campaña para los que hablan español. Estamos muy emocionados de compartir estos materiales y estos recursos con las comunidades en todo el país, pero para decirles un poquito acerca de la campaña, esta campaña se llama la campaña de prevención de opioides. Es una campaña de salud pública en los medios de comunicación para ayudar a prevenir el uso de sustancias en los adolescentes. Nosotros nos motivamos a hacer esa campaña, a avanzar esa campaña, porque las tasas de sobredosis han aumentado entre los jóvenes. Y en las últimas décadas, la mayoría de las personas tratadas por el uso o el trastorno por uso de opioides comenzaron a consumir antes de los 25 años. Entonces, es muy importante tratar de prevenir el uso y demorar el uso a los adolescentes. Lo que dijo Rafael ahorita en sus comentarios es súper importante, enfocarnos en los niños. Esta campaña contiene información, materiales, videos, Y otra información clave para dar orientación para los padres y los maestros y a otras personas que tienen influencia y que tienen comunicación con nuestros adolescentes. Y la información contiene información para prevenir el uso indebido de opioides. Entonces, hemos tratado de traducir los materiales en la campaña que hemos lanzado en inglés para la comunidad latina específicamente. Tenemos materiales o un kit que contiene evidencia, traduce la ciencia de la adicción y proporciona información crítica sobre la prevención. Entonces, para los que están escuchando, si tienen una asociación con una organización que está interesado en estos materiales y quiere ser un socio con nosotros acerca de esta campaña, favor de dejarnos saber. Yo puse mi correo electrónico en el chat, pero también pusimos el sitio de web donde están todos esos materiales en el chat. Haley, you put the campaign information and website in the chat, is that right? Pueden mirar esa página de web y también pueden comunicarse con nosotros para obtener mayor información. Gracias por estar con nosotros hoy y si hay preguntas en español, las puede poner en el chat y yo se las traduzco y se las mando a Jessica cuando vamos a hacer contestar las preguntas. Y lo último que voy a decir es que yo soy pocha, soy de descendencia mexicoamericana, so me tienen que perdonar mi español imperfecto, pero para mí esta es una campaña súper importante y lo siento de todo corazón y gracias por atender a este seminario. That's it, Jess. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Liliana. I really appreciate that. And we will, again, we have links to both the English and the Spanish versions of the campaign and all of the campaign resources available to each one of you. If your organization would like to join up and be an official sort of co-sponsor of this and join us in advancing these materials and messages every single week, shoot us an email message or a chat in here, and we'll make sure we add you to the list and you get up-to-date information of what we're pushing out to our Latinx communities. At that, I have a great pleasure to introduce Christina. Dr. Christina Raybiden-Deal is a close friend and to APF and an amazing leader. She's also an impacted family member and has done such amazing work, sort of leveraging her connections, her background and her expertise to help other families who are struggling with substance use disorders and be an advocate and a leader in terms of a family impacted message at SAMHSA, at HHS, locally here in Maryland, and really engaging new partners and making it very clear that we need more resources for families, and we also need to have better supports and services for Latinx communities. So Christina, thank you so much for both being on our focus group and joining us today for the event.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Jess. And of course, I wouldn't be honoring my background as a scientist if I didn't share or use the aid of a PowerPoint presentation. But first, I want to recognize, acknowledge, and congratulate everyone involved, not only in this webinar, but also at Addiction Policy Forum for their vision, for addressing a tremendous need in our community, in our Hispanic community. And I'm going to wear two hats today. So first, obviously, the scientific hat, just to address some of the issues that have been said before. And the second one, as Jess mentioned, as a family member impacted by this terrible epidemic that we have in our country. And I'm going to use as a resource a document that I hope that all of you, if you're not, become at least familiar with. This is a report that SAMHSA had released about a year ago, focusing specifically on the opioid crisis and the Hispanic Latino population. And as they call, it's an urgent issue. This is also can be downloaded for free in English and in Spanish. So the thing that to a certain extent motivated me also to engage so actively in Hispanic and particularly Hispanic youth, which is something that I have been doing for at least a couple of decades, was really this table. So what this table is showing us is the annual prevalence of use of various drugs by race and ethnicity for 8th, 10th, and 12th graders in the United States in 2018. Okay, we are talking about kids that are between 13 to 18 years of age. So this is showing you different drugs, heroin, Oxycontin, and Vicodin. And it's really looking at the use by race and ethnicity, white, African Americans, and Hispanics. And you can see here in red, I circled it because what these numbers at the bottom show you is the prevalence of use of these drugs in our Hispanic youth. And you can see that for heroin, Hispanic kids of 8th and 10th grade are the highest users. The same thing happens with 10th graders of Oxycontin, and the same thing with Vicodin. And it's just been said before, this is a very vulnerable time, right, in development, the adolescent years, so many things going on, and particularly the plasticity of the brain. The data has shown that particularly if individuals at that time, their period of time at that age, get exposed to substances, they have a higher probability of developing the disease of addiction, and as such, a higher probability of entering that horrible, horrible world, which increases also their chances of having overdoses and the chances of dying. So we have to address the problem because as we've already addressed, the increase of overdose and overdose deaths have increased exponentially all across the United States. Over 100,000 lives were lost in the last 12 months due to a drug overdose. This has not spared the Hispanic community. And from the same report, we see that the magnitude of the problem, where what this is showing is the percent increase from 2014 to 2017 in overdose death rates by drugs among the Hispanic population in the United States. So you can see here that by all drugs, it's over 100%, over 160% almost. But the one that accounts for the majority of those deaths are synthetic opioids other than methadone. An increase in just 4 years, 617% increase. So when I start thinking about all our kids in these middle school and high schools, and I look at these statistics, I am terrified. So this campaign is so relevant because also when you look at this report, towards the end of the report, there are recommendations, strategies for potential for replication. And one of the things that second recommendation says, create culturally tailored public awareness campaigns in native languages. Because of the lack of culturally tailored public awareness campaigns regarding opioid misuse for the Hispanic Latino population. So once again, congratulations, Addiction Policy Forum. I want to just very briefly touch on the issue of stigma, and Pancho had talked about that. And I want to bring the attention to this absolutely phenomenal article authored by Dr. Nora Volkov, who, as you probably know, is the director of the National Institute of Drug Abuse, an institute that is part of the 27 institutes and centers that are in the NIH, which was one of my former homes. And she really, not only in the article, but also in an interview that it is attached to that article, addresses the important contribution of stigma to the toll of addiction. I've always talked about a stigma because stigma has touched my life. Last year, in commemoration of Hispanic Heritage Month, I authored a blog with Shatterproof, the first bilingual blog, addressing the stigma and addiction in Hispanic communities. Because, One of the things that I like the most about us Hispanics is our diversity and our cultural richness. Although we come from different countries and cultural backgrounds, the majority of us speak Spanish. And so our values and when it comes to family and social norms are very similar. We are very proud of who we are and where we come from. And when we meet for the first time, really, it doesn't matter where we come from, but we tend to gravitate towards each other. We speak Spanish, and there's this sense of solidarity and camaraderie that is quickly established. So many things unite us, including our perception of drug addiction and substance use disorders. So those are topics that, as Pancho said, we don't talk much about. Our lack of understanding very often makes us being judgmental and ashamed. And the majority of us don't know that it is a disease. And when a loved one has an addiction problem, we tend to either minimize it or we give up because we believe that recovery is impossible. And it actually is not. Here in this picture, it is my family. This is a family picture. And that handsome young man with a white t-shirt is my son, Jonathan. We lost Jonathan on June 13th, 2019. He was 28. He died of an accidental overdose, and what he took was adulterated with fentanyl. I will need at least another 90 minutes, right, to tell you about Jonathan. But the reason why I'm showing his pictures is because, to a certain extent, his face is representative of the faces of the people in this country and around the world that are afflicted by this terrible disease. People like my Jonathan, normal, regular people. Jonathan loved sports, loved to cook, was a family man. But you know, Jonathan struggled for over a decade, but a struggle in silence. He was ashamed of himself. He suffered from self-stigma. He was so ashamed that not even his closest friends knew that he was having this terrible disease. He really kept saying, I don't have a problem. And that self-stigma prevented him from seeking out help. He gave us all of these reasons of why he didn't fit into the category of what social perception, especially in us, in the Hispanic community, was the picture of that individual with substance use disorders. You know, and what it is also sad and very illuminating for me was the fact that in spite of even me being a scientist and us being parents who were so involved in our children's upbringing and in our community, we ourselves also suffer from stigma. We, of course, were terrified of just the thought that this was happening to our son. But we, you know, found all kinds of excuses to not see the signs. We sort of like justified his behavior or our behavior with all of these different sort of arguments of why Jonathan could not have an addiction problem. By the time we realized, unfortunately, it was too late. He was so into the disease, right? At that time, his disease has really taken over him that there was nothing that we could do to convince him to seek help. So when I start thinking about, you know, what does this campaign mean? This campaign goes, in my mind, from a family perspective, beyond to the original intent, which was, you know, let's try to help our youth, as Pancho said, right? Our adolescents. We will, of course we will. But to me, as a family member, to me, this is an empowerment tool. Because, you know, when I've been transported into this community, a community that I never wanted to belong to, frankly, this parallel universe that has always existed, but that I didn't really know it existed because I lived in my bubble, right? I lived in a completely different world. Now that I am so active at so many communities, you know, I am so relieved to know that now we are starting to come together to address these issues. But you know what? There's still a voice that is missing. The voice of those living with this disease. Not only the patients, but also the families who struggle every single day and are witnessing how this terrible disease creeps up into your lives and takes away the life of the loved ones. And in particularly, the voices that are missing are the voices of those who, like me, have lost a loved one. And listen, I know how hard this is. I know this is very difficult, but we need those voices to unite it. So in addition to my congratulations to everyone who's been involved in really making history in addressing this problem in the Hispanic community, I make a pledge. I make a pledge for us and others to get involved, because we need your voices. You know, we need to break the stigma. We need to use campaigns like this and materials like this to educate ourselves, our communities, our loved ones, and to reach out and to say, we want to be part of the solution. So I want to encourage all of you, let's get together, let's break the stigma, let's work with governments and organizations like APF and others, with community-based organizations, and start really addressing what we really need to do, which is finding hope for those that are afflicted by this terrible disease. And while those ones that we lost, cannot become back, it is their legacy to help others. And it is what helps me every day to get up and face the day thinking that in the name of my son, maybe I get lucky and in my lifetime, I'll be able to contribute to saving a life. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Christina. What an amazing presentation. We're so grateful to you for being a part of this project and campaign, for your work to use your voice and your background as a scientist to help us advance this field. We're really excited to make this available, and as an impacted family member, I share in that. If we can help just one family, one person, prevent one overdose, prevent one addiction from happening in the first place, then we are moving at least in the right direction and are remembering those that we love and honoring them in that way.
Thank you.
I am so glad that Beverly Watts Davis is able to join us from the West Care Foundation. My friend and mentor, Beverly I think I would best describe Beverly as a force of nature in San Antonio, the state of Texas and beyond. And the work that she does in her own community, including serving her Latinx population, both on the prevention side, direct services, the amazing care that West Care provides to clients as well. We're so grateful to you for lending your time and expertise to this campaign and for joining us today.
Well, thank you all, and for sure, Jessica, thank you so very, very much, you all, for having me. I am so honored to share the panel with everyone, especially Raphael and Dr. Christina. My hat's off to you and your work, and just know that every day you're making a difference because you choose to get up and take it on one more time. And that's what we do. And I want to just be able to say, I want to thank you all for being such advocates for this prevention. This campaign is so timely. You all, we have in our field, sometimes prevention oftentimes gets overlooked, but no one can argue that it is truly the most cost-effective, and I want to add this word, humane thing we can do for our country, because we see what the harm, just all the harm that is caused by us not doing this. And Raphael, you painted such a wonderful picture of a vivid picture of things happening in my community. And I just want to be able to say that what I want to be able to talk about is just in experience in serving communities of color, and it is different. And that's why, again, for the longest time, I just have to say, I do believe systemically in our country, we were oftentimes forgotten because people didn't really think we mattered. So why would we possibly have a prevention campaign for us? We just ought to just accept what everybody else is doing. So Jess, I'm going to thank you for being courageous. And I imagine in some circles getting into good trouble for all the right reasons. We need to do what we need to do for all the right things. And thank you for doing this. So I want to just be able to share some things that I think are really important as we launch this. as this campaign is launched. And one of them is truly, I'm from being in San Antonio, Texas. We are a wonderful city, and we are actually over 63% Hispanic. And in several of the area communities that I work in, we probably also have one of the largest mixed race populations between African Americans and Hispanics. And so I get a chance to really enjoy and celebrate diversity from wonderful cultural diversity from wonderful perspectives. And some of the things that I have learned is even in this community, I just have to just tell you that it's important to know how a community refers to itself. Being in San Antonio, I have and this is particularly with many of the older parents, and we do have a large population of grandparents who are parenting their grandchildren, but they are parents. And so, and they refer to themselves. It's so important to know, ask a community, make sure whatever you're doing, you understand how the community refers to itself. In San Antonio, you have people, you have communities that refer to themselves as Mexican. You have other communities refer to themselves as Hispanic. You have others who refer to themselves as Latina, Latino, and then younger people refer to themselves as LatinX. I'm just simply saying to you all, in communicating messages, it's really important that the people who are receiving the message see themselves in the message. And so I think that's really important to be able to do that. But I also want to be able to say too, is in terms of people talk about outreach, and I always want to say, that means a lot. That means means something different to a lot of different people. But one of the things that has really worked for us is that we don't what we call Lone Ranger it. Even in having this campaign, I'm so excited about having these tools, but you will not see us just putting it out there. This will be immersed into trusted events and trusted activities, so that it's not just here, I have a brochure and you ought to have it. No, it becomes a part of the quinceañera. It becomes a part of the religious service, much of which is Catholic. It becomes a part where we've just literally, we're going to be placing these things in the churches, but it won't just be at the beginning part, when you're actually going into to worship, but it'll be in the restrooms and in places that people that again are really key. It will be in some of our best restaurants, and I mean I'm talking about the down home neighborhood restaurants, not the tourist stuff where you get real Mexican food, not that other stuff. But anyway, but it's important that we note that, and that you respect the existing culture, the existing lay of the land, and the existing mechanism by which people actually receive information. It truly, in our communities, as I believe is truly in any Mexican, Hispanic, Latino, or Latinx communities, it is all about family, and to build on the respect that Hispanic cultures have on family is really important, and something that Raphael talked about. His motivation wasn't revenge. It was really about loving family, him wanting us to stick up for his family. And that is something that I believe we and emphasizing this, that we're building on the natural, strong manifestation and love that is shown by the Hispanic, Mexican, Latino, Latinx community is so very important that we need to build on that, and really build around whatever is family gatherings, family incidences, family things that really focus on family. And I've recognized in my work that person-to-person context is best. Immediately I've seen people just start texting people and calling people, and they're like, you don't know me. It's like, who is this? And so it's really important, and I have learned that you have to get to know folks before you assume that you can actually tell them something about their lives. And so I do think, I just want to be able to emphasize that one-on-one, person-to-person contact is key most first. And then once you have a relationship, or you have the beginnings of a relationship, then you can do texting and calling and those kinds of things. I also want to just be able to emphasize that depending on what age group that we're dealing with, how they're going to receive media is going to be different. Truly, many of my older seniors that are in our seniors program, they rely on traditional media, and that's TV and radio. They are still there. And so, you know, they're like me. I mean, look, I have a phone and I use it to call. I don't do Facebook. I don't do Instagram, the Flippy Bird or whatever that is. I don't do any of those things. I use a phone and I talk on it and I hang it up. You know, I'm not interested, you know, and so, but the younger folks, this is what they do all day long. And so it's important, again, as we are doing this and we want to be able to reach parents, but do understand our parents. As I said, we have many grandparents who are parenting. The way to reach them may be, it's truly age, you've got to be age appropriate on that. I just want to emphasize that, because so much of many of us are thinking that everybody is this, you know, is technology based. They're not. And so we found out that to be very, very key. And something else I want to just be able to say, oftentimes it's really key for us to, as Jessica said earlier, you know, people say they want this in, that we need this in Spanish language brochures. What I have learned, and I'm so appreciative of my staff, the Spanish language, the way we speak is very different than the way we write. And the same thing is very, very key. When you're writing, please make sure that you have somebody who is going to write the way people receive it in the way that they talk. That's very different from writing an academic piece, which is meant to be very structured and et cetera. And when people translate media messages, they try to do the same thing. Well, no, that's not going to work. It's not going to work in San Antonio, Texas. Let me just say that. We need to communicate in ways with folks in the way so that they can receive it. So speaking it and reading it is really, really very, very key. But just remind us that, you know, we cannot build a future for our children. I mean, we really honestly are not in control of that, but we can build our children for the future. And so I think it's really important, again, we focus in on you all parents. We are still the most influential person in our children's lives. Despite what our children say, we are the most influential in our children's lives. And the more that you get in their lives. I tell my son who is over 40, and my granddaughters, now I have great grandchildren. I love you enough to just to argue with you, and I love you enough to let you be mad at me for a while. That's okay. You know, you can just be mad at me, but I'm going to love you enough to fight for you and to fight with you if I need to, not physically, but to fight with you, to be able to make sure that you are safe and that you're going to, you know, be able to enjoy the path that God has laid for you. So I do say that it is truly, again, I feel family with the people on this. I feel such a kinship with you. And I just want to thank each and every one of you all out there, all the heroes and sheroes who are out there working in their communities not to make things just better, but to really take these issues on and do something about it so that we no longer lose the potential that we have in our country. We have such wonderful, it's going to be a wonderful future for our children, our grandchildren, and our great grandchildren. And we are doing our part to be able to make sure that happens. And just thank you for being courageous and for doing this. And as I said, it's an honor to be with all of you.
Thank you so much, Bev. Thank you for working with us to have all your input help to make this better. One of the things that we talk about is good enough is not good enough. We need to strive for excellence for all of our communities. And we need to get it right. We need to tailor it culturally. We need to get the language right. We learned a lot through this. We had a very amazing set of folks that helped us translate this. There's lots of nuances, and we're not going to phone it in when the stakes are so high. So I'm grateful to every one of you for your contributions and making today's launch of the the campaign possible. It really is exciting. Our line here is to go make mischief, and sort of the good mischief, and sort of changing things up to make sure that we are doubling down on prevention, and we're doubling down on prevention in communities who too often have been overlooked is really important to us. And this is part of a larger effort that we're going to keep working towards. One item I wanted to flag, and we're going to share and play some of the PSAs, the explainer videos for you towards the end of our webinar, so you can see live some of the content. It is in Spanish. For those of you that don't speak Spanish, though, there are English language versions of every single component. So please visit addictionpolicy.org to access those components. But I also wanted to mention that we were so grateful, and also I learned so much about getting the language and the translation right. We had individuals, someone who's Mexican American, someone from Peru, I believe a focus group member from Spain, all reviewing translations. And there are nuances in all of these different communities and countries of origin or countries of family origin. And there's like nuances here. So I think if we, and Christina brought this up, one of the SAMHSA recommendations is to produce culturally tailored resources. Well, you can't phone it in and half-ass it to say that I worked with one person to get this right and translated. I think you need to show dedication and commitment to making sure that the content works for such a host of individuals and families and communities that have nuances in both verbal and written sort of Spanish, and how certain concepts are brought across. And we learned so much from this. I think that there are great lessons learned on how we can apply this to other awareness campaigns and projects and resources at APF, but also from some of our other partners. And it is worth it. Our communities are worth investing that level of detail to make sure we get it right. And I'm really grateful to this team and our focus group members for putting so much time into it. And I'm really proud of the campaign components that we're going to share with you. It really can make the difference in the lives of families and communities. And doubling down to make sure we get it right is really a focus and sort of a principle or a value of APF. So thank you to the team for making that happen. So at that, I'm going to hand it over to Haley to show you some of our campaign materials.
12 cosas que los padres pueden hacer para prevenir la adicción. Nuestro trabajo es proteger a nuestros niños y mantenerlos a salvo. Los mantenemos cerca mientras dan sus primeros pasos. Les enseñamos a mirar a ambos lados antes de cruzar la calle y les ayudamos a desarrollar hábitos saludables. Sabemos que mantener a los niños a salvo de la adicción también es una alta prioridad. Aquí hay 12 cosas que los padres pueden hacer para proteger a los adolescentes de la adicción. Número 1. Hable temprano y con frecuencia sobre la adicción. Los niños cuyos padres les hablan sobre los riesgos del uso de drogas y alcohol tienen un 50% menos de probabilidad de consumir sustancias. Es importante que los adolescentes retrasen el uso de sustancias hasta que su cerebro esté completamente desarrollado. El cerebro del adolescente no se desarrolla completamente hasta los 22 años para las niñas y los 25 para los niños. Puede desarrollar una adicción más rápidamente durante este tiempo y dañarse más fácilmente que el cerebro del adulto. El 90% de las personas con adicciones comenzaron a consumir antes de los 18 años. Si su familia tiene antecedentes de adicción, puede discutir esto con su hijo. Insiste en la necesidad de ser más cauteloso. Una predisposición genética puede hacer que una persona sea más susceptible a la adicción, especialmente si el uso comienza temprano. Número 2. Actividades de apoyo a la salud. Dos de los factores clave que reducen el riesgo de que los niños desarrollen adicciones son el apego saludable y el compromiso prosocial, lo que significa sentirse parte y participar en actividades positivas, ya sea deportes, música, drama o voluntariado. A los niños.
Thank you, Haley. We're going to show a little clip of another video. Vamos a mostrar un poquito de otro video. El siguiente video se llama 12 cosas que los padres pueden hacer para prevenir la adicción. And so the next video in English is 12 things teachers can do. I'm sorry. I think I got the order of the videos wrong. So we're going to play the teachers video, 7 things teachers can do to prevent addiction. And there's a parent video also, we just saw. So vamos a mostrarles el video acerca de las 7 cosas que los maestros pueden hacer para prevenir la adicción. Go ahead, Haley.
7 cosas que los maestros pueden hacer para prevenir la adicción. Sabemos que la seguridad de sus estudiantes es importante para usted. Tú eres su maestro. Le enseñas nuevas materias, pensamiento crítico y nuevas habilidades todos los días. Con la actual crisis de opioides en Estados Unidos, también es importante mantener a sus estudiantes a salvo de la enfermedad de la adicción. Para los adolescentes, el uso de drogas y alcohol puede dañar el cerebro y causar adicción más fácilmente que en los adultos. Aquí hay 7 cosas que los maestros pueden hacer para proteger a los adolescentes de la adicción. Número 1. Hable con sus estudiantes. Tenga una conversación con su clase sobre los riesgos de consumir alcohol, tabaco y otras drogas. El uso de drogas y alcohol tiene efectos cognitivos que afectarán el rendimiento académico y la salud general de su estudiante. Número 2. Establezca expectativas claras. Sea claro con su clase que espera que no consuman alcohol ni drogas. Usted es una persona importante en sus vidas. Enseñándoles todos los días y hablar sobre este tema es importante. Hágalo parte de sus expectativas para toda su clase. Deberes, estudio, preparación para la clase, sueño adecuado y evitar el uso del alcohol y las drogas. Número 3. Practique las habilidades de rechazo. Practique mensajes clave que sus estudiantes pueden usar en situaciones de riesgo, tal como: no, soy el conductor designado. No, tengo una gran prueba mañana. O no, mis padres son estrictos con eso. Número 4. Establezca consecuencias claras. Sea claro sobre las consecuencias inmediatas de su escuela por el uso de alcohol y drogas. Número 5. Haz del sueño una prioridad. Hable con sus alumnos sobre cómo dormir lo suficiente. El sueño es fundamental para la salud física y mental, especialmente durante la adolescencia, cuando los cerebros se desarrollan rápidamente. Número 6. Intervenga temprano. Si cree que un estudiante puede estar luchando contra el uso de sustancias, no espere para intervenir. La ciencia nos dice que cuanto antes se trate a una persona por trastorno por uso de sustancias, mejores serán sus resultados. Número 7. Edúquese sobre la adicción. Comprender la adicción lo ayudará a hablar sobre el problema con sus estudiantes y responder a preguntas. Los maestros juegan un papel importante en la vida de los adolescentes. Estas 7 estrategias ayudarán a mantenerlos seguros y saludables. Para obtener más información, visite www.addictionpolicy.org.
Thank you so much, Liliana and Haley, for sharing those 2 videos. There's also a video for an adolescent audience, and again, the publications One sort of note and a thank you. The 12 things parents can do to prevent addiction, sort of engaging with your own children. Dr. Wilson Compton at the National Institute on Drug Abuse, his research and science and spending time translating some of what we know about prevention science for this piece was really instrumental. And so we're very grateful to Dr. Compton. I also want to thank our narrator, Maria Pignon, narrated our video series for us and did such an amazing job. And we're really excited that we get to share this. All of these videos and content are available to download and again, share with your networks. You can download the files so you can direct link them on your channels. And as Beverly mentioned, making sure we provide these materials and resources in the formats best suited for the audience. So we do have print materials that are available. So you have hard copies to things that can be on social media. So there's a range of resources that are available. I also wanted to take this time to thank Michelle Jaskolski. Michelle leads our work in Wisconsin, sort of our state chapter and all of our work on the ground, and has been instrumental in so much of our prevention work as part of the APF team. So thank you, Michelle, for your work there. We'll send our thank yous separately to Kate. She actually had some technology challenges, and we've all been there, but we're so grateful she could join us for a portion or for the whole webinar on the content and then share some of her remarks for a bit. And now I think we have time to open it up for Q&A with our audience. I'm available to answer any questions, our panelists, any questions that you have for any of our speakers today. You can pose your questions in English or in Spanish, whatever is most comfortable to you, and we'll make sure that we have someone on the team who responds. So Heidi asked if there are radio PSAs for this campaign. Spanish language radio is very popular around here. We could clip out the audio portions of our PSAs, and you could we could share that with you separately. Haley, that's a really good idea that we could save shortened clips of this just for radio content. So Heidi, excellent idea. We will work on adding that as an additional component to the campaign. We also have a question from Carlos. Have you considered the use of networks approach to health promotion to analyze the social net around youth or build favorable networks in such youth communities, build a network contagion of knowledge, attitudes, and practice? We should infiltrate the youth communities with this, others with negative goals. I do it quite effectively, unfortunately. It might be so important in our Latino communities and more so in the most recent, more recent immigrants. It's just an idea. He says, great session, the resources are amazing. I love that idea. I do think that we know from risk and protective factor science that it is a risk factor in terms of social networks. We also know this is particularly important for those in recovery to build sort of social identities that are positive and supportive of sort of healthy behaviors. The same is true for adolescents and prevention. So I think having some pieces where we could spread to more peers and talk about sort of development of positive social networks is really critical. I love that idea. Kelly asked if there will be a recording of this webinar. Yes, it will be on the campaign website as well as our YouTube channel and on the APF website. You can find all of our webinars recorded at addictionpolicy.org. We'll also push out snippets from our speakers that will almost become new PSAs that'll be a part of this. So surprise, Pancho, Bev, Christina, you'll have your own PSA in short order. Mary said, not a question, but want to say thank you so much for raising my awareness. Great use of my time. Thank you so much, Mary, for joining us today. Shannon said, I don't speak Spanish. Do you have cards with common Spanish phrases in case someone in distress and there's an interpreter not available? We do have all the materials also available in English. So I think between having both translated versions, we don't have content available in other languages yet, but it's on our to-do list. I don't think we necessarily have any language cards for sort of crisis situations, but if you reach out to us, we're happy to see if we can put our fingers on other resources that might be helpful to you, Shannon. Hendrix asked, this actually, hello, my name is Yasin Benavides, Puerto Rico. Thank you for joining us from Puerto Rico. I want to applaud all of you for such wonderful work. Thank you so much for joining us. That's wonderful. We are grateful you took the time out of your afternoon to be with us today. Kelly said, thank you so much. This is great and a much needed campaign. Thank you, Kelly. We really appreciate it. Any other questions for our speakers or panelists? I feel like I'm right on target with my run of show and agenda, which never happens. So I feel like that is quite a feat in and of itself. Let me see if there's another question that come in. Dinah says, thank you so much for everyone involved. This is pure gold. I really care. I really can appreciate what both Christina and Beverly had to say about the importance of families. My organization, Parents of Addicted Loved Ones, is excited to roll out our first national virtual meeting in Spanish. My question is, how can we partner with other organizations to do what Beverly was describing, to approach Spanish speakers with this opportunity? You know, Beverly, if you want to speak to that, about other organizations who are working to provide better resources and new resources for Hispanic Latinx communities and how they can get the word out and partner with others on the ground.
And I want to thank you, Dina, for asking that question. And I do think, let me give you a good example, and that might be the best way. As in all cities, you have certain areas. You know, your city is divided up into many different communities. One of the things that I have learned, we have what is called one of the organizations, the Mexican American Community Council, which is and another organization, which is also the Hispanic Fair Contracting Coalition. Both of them, although they're focused on different issues, someone might think, well, why would we try to take the prevention campaign to them? But they're doing a number of things. But what you look for is everybody in that organization is a parent, or they at least know one. And so one of the things that we're doing is we're figuring out. So although they're focusing in on economic development with the Hispanic Fair Contracting Coalition, this is absolutely something that I would be able to bring to them and speak to all members about that. So it's looking for different venues and figuring out ways where we can actually be able to figure out ways in which to talk about this amongst them in their breaks, when there are things on opening up on the sites that they're working at, being able to have these conversations with the Mexican American Unity Council. Getting them to host a parent, what I call speak in, so that they're inviting people who normally would work with them to come and listen and hear about this. Again, it's not just me just putting it out saying, okay, well, we did our job. No, it's figuring out, how do I infuse this into the existing groundwater of communities and what they're doing. And I was choosing those two examples because they're very different than what we would normally think a prevention organization is doing. But I can tell you, they're influential in their communities, and they're influencers, and people will listen to them. And however they want to be able to immerse this, I need to be flexible enough to be able to make that happen with them. Does that answer her question? Does that answer your question, Dina?
So helpful, Bev. Thank you so much. I love that, infusing the groundwater. That is such a apt way to put this, that we need to utilize trusted messengers, agencies, organizations, and service providers on the ground and give you new tools, not try to sort of insert ourselves without having built that trust in the first place. So I love that model. And Dina says, yes, Beverly, thank you so much. We have lots of amazing comments. I think there's dozens of you all that would like to receive more information and join us as sort of sponsors and part of this campaign to push this information out. So we're so grateful to get that kicked off. Look for an email from our team this week with some materials and links and the toolkit and everything you need. And if you have more requests or questions for us or other ideas that you have for better serving our community, please let us know. And we have one comment. Debbie says, excellent training. I work for Ms. Beverly Watts Davis at WestCare as the Community Safety and Engagement Coordinator. This is very impactful as we are a crime prevention resource working closely with local law enforcement. Thank you, Debbie Cruz. So, and Sal, Carmen, thank you for your comments. We'll get you materials ASAP. And Heidi, we will send you the toolkit and links to all the resources as well. So I think that about wraps up our time together. I want to thank everyone for spending the afternoon with us and for your commitment to joining us and putting out the resources of the opioid prevention campaign to all communities, whether and all individuals. We have adults, youth, service organizations. All of us can take part in getting better prevention messages and resources out to the folks that are on the ground and need it the most. Thank you to our amazing speakers. Pancho, Christina, Beverly, Kate, we appreciate you taking time, not just today, but helping us to build this year. A year ago, this was sort of a pie in the sky idea. And look what we built by working together and making sure that it is appropriate and useful, not just good enough, but working to hit the development of resources out of the park and make sure that they're usable, they're culturally appropriate and tailored, and that they are exactly what our community needs and is asking us for. So we hope to make lots of headway in getting this out to folks. If you have other organizations or agencies that want to join in, please feel free to share the campaign materials, and let's keep building a bigger bench so we can better support all communities in prevention of substance use disorders. Thank you so much. We'll be sure to send links to the presentation materials, the campaign, and the recording of the webinar over the next couple days. And until our next webinar or event, we'll see you soon. Hope everyone is well.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a good Christmas, everybody.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you, Pancho. Thank you, everyone. And thank you to the APF team that worked so hard on this campaign. We'll see everyone really soon.
Okay.
Safe and happy holidays
Bye.
to all.
Yes. Bye-bye.